basic beach reading episode. In a case like today where you're not sure of the tide, not sure if it's coming in, going out, you can still find a decent little cut based on current conditions, wind, etc. Today it's a little bit southeast wind, I'd say around 10, but with the east in the wind you can see that the water's pretty clean. That white line you see out there, surf break, that's actually the edge of the outer sandbar, outer edge of the outer sandbar. Where you see it gets dark, that's deeper water and close. And then, of course, the shore break. Generally, it depends on what species I'm after, but ideally, like say, since striper season's coming, black drum season's coming, early in the spring, ideally spots matter, but not so much as finding where the bait is. Typically in the spring when I'm looking for bait, I look for sand fleas, an abundance of seashells laying on the beach. Crushed up shows that there's pockets of current there. Where there's current, I could usually find a ton of sand fleas. Dig down a little bit. If you find tons of sand fleas, that's going to draw predator fish in. Because in the spring, there's not much bait fish around. Real early spring anyway. Water's still real cold. But hopefully I could find a little rip here, or a little, maybe a break in the bar, a rip current, or a slough in the trough here. Just something to show, point out, simple reading. But like this spot right here that we're passing, all this white water in close, that's showing it's real shallow, that it's real shallow all the way in. Not necessarily one of the best spots to fish unless it was on a point per se. There's no points here. I'm not seeing any signs of real structure, just that it's shallow. Now for striper and black drum, it's not necessarily a bad thing. They'll come in, but you're taking a risk because you don't know exactly how shallow that water is. Black drum and striper don't mind shallow water, but I mean, you got to be reasonable to a point. We don't know whether that's knee deep or ankle deep. Now where the waves are breaking, yeah, obviously that's deeper water. And this spot wouldn't be bad to fish at low tide if you say you had nothing else to choose from, because you can at least cast over and get into that deeper water, or right on the edge of that bar, that outer bar there. But realistically, I'm not seeing anything here that would draw fish in. You know what I mean? So it'd be more of a luck of fish coming through and you being there when it comes through. I don't really, you know, that's like a last desperate opportunity spot to fish. So what I usually like to do is in the spring, or late winter, early spring, I come out here and I'll start marking spots just to get a general idea, seeing where the rips are, where the current, you know, where the points are on the beach. See how the structure's changed. See if I see any, you know, signs of life, any birds working. Obviously, things change all the time. And out here, I mean, in the spring and late fall, this beach can change on a daily basis. In the summertime, it stays pretty consistent, just really depends on how many storms we get. But in the summertime, you could have a spot for 2 or 3 weeks without it changing much. Springtime, wintertime, like I said, it could change on a daily basis depending on nor'easters that roll through, or, you know, late summer hurricanes in the fall. But having a general base of where points are, normally, unless a major storm comes through, they're not going to move much. They're going to move up or north or south, you know, 50, 100 yards at a time. And it'll be easier to help you locate, especially if you try to come out at night. Having an idea where you want to go really helps. So I enjoy coming out here and just getting a rough idea of where I should be fishing in the spring. Like right here, real shallow, but not 50 yards. See, all that white water is indicating that it's real shallow all the way out to the bar. But not 25, 50, 100 yards to the right here. There's a nice deep pool. This wouldn't be a bad spot to fish. because that deep water, you know, and having a point right there, it creates structure. It's something different that's not matching the rest of the beach that you're fishing on. That'll help pull fish in. You know, the little eddies and stuff created by the point and whatnot. It makes it an easy ambush point. And it makes it, you know, the little bowls and stuff, the smaller bait fish, the fleas, the crabs, they'll all sit there in that little pocket trying to take refuge. Of course, the predator fish, they're going to come in and know that those fish are sitting in there and they're easy pickup. So, might not talk much for a minute or two, but if I see something, I'll point it out and I'll let you go, and I'll key everyone into what I'm looking at. Beach reading is not something you can pick up in one trip, but you do it often enough, you start getting comfortable with what you're looking at, it gets easier. It takes time to learn. Here's a little tip. Like I said, I came out here not knowing what the tide is. It's about midday. I want to, just by knowing this island, I can tell you it's lower tide. Now, whether, I don't know if we're at dead low, if it's coming in, if it's you know, still going out, no idea. But here's a little secret. Whenever you're coming out here just like this at random time, you don't know what the tide is, the conditions are. A little secret that I've been taught that give you a better chance, and it you know, 25 years has proved itself to me that it works when all else fails. You come out, you get conditions like today. Like I said, I don't know anything else. I don't know the tides. I know the winds, obviously, because I'm out here. But other than that, I'm going off what I see. Now, what was taught to me a long time ago, if conditions are rough, in other words, the whole beach, up and down the beach, super rough, real choppy water, you can't really see bottom at all, you want to try to find the calmest section you can to fish. And it's vice versa. On calm days where it's like glass, you want to come out here and look for the roughest, choppiest water you can find. Main point being, it's structure. When something sticks out obviously that different as compared to what the rest of the beach is doing, there's something there that's structure. That'll get you in a decent area, or at least increase your chances when, you know, like out here, it's just miles and miles and miles of endless beach. It all looks the same. Little pointer like that when you're coming in blind will really greatly increase your chances of catching. And that rule applies toward pretty much any species of fish you're targeting. Like I said, today we're using black drum and striper as an example, since they're going to be the first ones to come through here in a couple weeks. But say I was after red drum, that's an entirely different type of structure I'd look for. They're more based on time of day, time of night. It doesn't matter. You got to find out when they're actively feeding. Striped bass, they'll hit day or night as well. But everything's temperature based, current based, conditions based. I've caught them in mud wall. I've caught striper and red drum in muddy conditions, in clear conditions. The one thing I have found that's consistent is there's got to be food. There's got to be something to bring them in. Right now, this time of year, water temps are probably right around 42 to 45 on a good day. Water's cold. This time of year, they're all should be down at the mouth of the Chesapeake Bay, getting ready to migrate up into the rivers, or head up into the rivers to spawn. So you'd be very, very, very unlikely to find any big striper out here right now. A lot of little schoolies, if anything, if there's any out here. But really, ideally, in any out here in the Atlantic, temperatures drop below 45 degrees. It's not really worth your time to even attempt to fish. fish the surf anyway. You could go take, you know, party boat and hit the wrecks and stuff offshore and catch tog and stuff. But off the beach, it's not really, you know, unless you're just looking to get out and wet a line, you're not going to catch much. Now, right here, we've been driving about 2 miles. Right here, you're seeing, this actually wouldn't be a bad spot. That outer bar would be kind of hard to hit, even at low tide. But when this tide comes in, all this water right here, you can see the tide lines, like we're literally right in front of me, the high tide line. So all that there is going to be underwater. It's going to create a deep little trough there for fish to come through. Now, like in the summertime when targeting shark and stuff like that, bigger game, this would be an ideal spot. Couldn't fish it 24 hours. It gets too shallow at low tide. But say I was out here for shark in the summertime, you know, dead low tide midday, that means high tide is going to be at midnight. It'd be an ideal spot to fish. Set up early afternoon, fish for bait fish as the tide's low. And as the evening starts to set in, you bring out the bigger rods and use what you caught for bait. Bring in the bigger fish. But yeah, see, I mean, that bar goes way out. All that white water right there, that's a little point. That's not a rip. Nice little hole right here enclosed. But again, that outer bar is real shallow and it's real wide. It'd be hard to cast over. If you tried, you'd run the risk of putting your bait right on the most shallowest spot. So definitely not an ideal spot to set up here. I haven't seen anything super fantastic yet, but like I said, this is a couple weeks before I'd normally even come out. And it's more than likely gonna change quite a bit before I actually start coming out regularly. You know, we're nearing the end of winter. Typically, we'll get a couple nor'easters thrown in here, especially March. March is a crapshoot. But overall, it's been a slightly warm winter and warmer than normal. We had a couple cold spells. We just got off of one this weekend. It dropped down to like 8 degrees. But today out here on the beach, it's 45. Next week or so, it's supposed to get warmer. Figured it'd be a good day to get out and just do a quick video on beach reading. I mean, just trying to help you get the basics. Again, here what we're looking at is the bar is probably 100 yards, 150 yards out. Deep little trough enclosed. So I mean, if I was to fish this and had no other choice, say I had 3 rods, I'd throw 1 rod, 2 rods in close in that darker water. And then my end rod, I would try to throw as hard as I could to clear that outer bar. Again, you can always tell the outer bar, even in cloudy or muddy water conditions, because that's where that line of white water is. That's where all that white water waves are going to be breaking off the beach. First time out here, probably I'd say 4 months, and it's changed quite a bit since I was last out here. It's filled in some. It's a little wider than it was. I know we got walloped pretty bad last fall, and it was a crapshoot whether this beach was going to be open or not, because it gotten so narrow in spots it was constantly washing over. Here's another spot where you got a little point where you can see all the white water. It's not super shallow, but out where those waves are crashing, that would have me leery on how shallow that is. In close here, you can see these rollers, these waves right here in front of me, that are about to hit the beach, like 3-4 foot rollers. That's telling me that water pocket right in there is a nice little bowl. It's probably I'd say anywhere from 3 to 5 feet deep. But then you get out to that bar, the bar's probably 50 yards wide, and that bar could be anywhere from ankle deep to knee deep. Ideally though, if you want to get a good read on the beach, you need to get out here at dead low tide. Dead low tide and no major winds in any direction, because that'll muddy up the water or clean up the water, it just makes it too hard to read. You get hard west winds, everything's gonna be flat and muddy. You're not gonna be able to see anything. You get no winds, you're not gonna have any current north south, nothing. It'll make it hard to read. Hard east winds makes big swell. You get more whitewater and stuff, but then it's also misleading and closed, because then even the dark spots, the deeper spots, will be all whitewater. Makes it hard to read. Again, that's why, like I said, if you get out here and it's a crapshoot, you can't really tell, it's always best to follow that rule of thumb. On rough days, find the calmest water, and on calm days, find the roughest water. That'll increase your chances, definitely. Now we're coming up to a spot that's interesting. I do recall fishing here in the fall. By circumstance, I really wouldn't have picked it, but it was closed. But you can tell here, real shallow, little point right here, all that white water. Then you get down here 50 feet. All this water in here is really deep looking. You can tell by how the waves are just rolling. Like, watch the waves crash on the outer bar. If they don't reform, the water's shallow. But you notice how the waves are starting to form again. When the waves start forming like that again, it rolls over, the waves roll over the bar, they dissipate, but then they start building momentum again. They start gaining that height again, because you've got a little trough in there, and it's allowing the water to build up and build another wave. So yeah, probably about 30-40 yards out right here, you got a nice little deep hole. Thing is, it's like you want to find where the breaks are. Ideally, rip currents are good to fish, but you got to have the weight to fish them. Anywhere there's a rip current, current's going to be a lot stronger, a lot harder to hold. You get any slight south wind or north wind on this beach, when you find a rip current, you're not going to be able to hold that spot. You're not going to be able to hold weight there. Bottom fishing anyway. But say I come out here and I actually want to fish today. I'm going to drive down the beach, and then I'm going to randomly, on a hunch, pick a spot, and I'll tell you why. But yeah, don't forget to like and subscribe. It'll all help me build my channel. This is costing me money, but I'm really doing this just to help people out that want to learn. I've spent 25 years out here doing this, and honestly, my first, I'd say 7 years, I was out here 4 or 5 days a week, hours and hours on end, and rarely would catch anything. Couldn't figure out what I was doing wrong. No one really wanted to offer help, but I kept trying. I kept trying. Almost gave up, honestly. But put 2 and 2 together. I read more about the fish that I was targeting. I wouldn't second guess. When my gut told me to fish a spot, I'd fish it. I wouldn't second guess it. I found out if you start second guessing and packing and moving, you're going to waste more time packing and unpacking than you will fishing. And fishing the ocean's about finding a spot you think is going to be good and sticking it out, giving it a good 12 hours minimum. I don't like coming out if I can't fish anywhere between 10 and 12 hours. I just feel it's just not worth my time. 12 hours is a full tide cycle. You get to see high tide once, you get to see low tide once. Then you really know what you're looking at that spot. Haven't quite seen anything that that I'd be willing to fish just yet. Seen two spots that I would consider, like say it was crowded beach, or beach was closed for some reason, or it's restricted. There's two spots that I'd consider, ones I pointed out, but nothing that really keys me in to like guarantee that I would do well. The idea is you want to find a spot that looks nothing like the rest of the beach. Something that like if it draws our attention and we're just looking through the water, imagine what it looks like under the water. Fish are curious animals. They go for miles and miles and miles looking at the same stretch of sand, the same waves, the same flat barren beach. Then all of a sudden you got little pockets and holes and more current. Obviously that's going to draw bait fish for shelter. Then it's going to draw predators in to investigate to see if there's food. Any change in beach structure is good. Now, beaches that are frequently replenished, like in my area, like Ocean City, it's nice, there's a ton of nice spots up there, but because they dredge offshore and drag that sand up on the beach and stuff, the fishing's usually never really that great. Not for big fish anyway. And my theory to that is because they dredge up, they churn up the bottom of stuff, they rip up the plant life, so crabs and things like that have nowhere to hang out and build homes. If there's no crabs and no snails and no sand fleas and things like that, there's no bait fish to pick them off. There's no bait fish, no predators come in. So while you might get lucky once in a while in Ocean City, and it's not a bad option when the weather's crap, there are definitely better, more ideal spots to fish. I like out here. I don't necessarily want to say where I'm at right now for several reasons. I mean, those that know me probably know where I'm at, but I don't want to be a spot burner, and I don't want to give away certain things. This is more about just anyone up and down the entire East Coast on how to read a beach and get yourselves into a better situation of actually catching and not having to go home empty-handed or feeling like you didn't accomplish anything. Nothing's worse than that. Granted, yeah, you're out on the beach, it's great, but when you want to invest your time and money and actually catch a fish, you hope to be successful. Like me, I don't keep any fish that I catch. Everything's released. Now mind you, kingfish, stuff like that, smaller stuff, I'll keep and use for bait, but I can't eat seafood as I'm allergic. So all I know, it's my favorite thing in the world to do. But anyway, like I said, now this spot here, I would fish this. I'm going to stop here and I will tell you why I would fish this. Alright, I don't know if you can see it. There's no rip current here. There's no break in the bar, but you got nice 8-9 foot rollers out there. And that tells me exactly where that outer bar is. Now I wouldn't necessarily fish this exact spot because of how far out that bar is, but it's a flat sandbar. It's like a little point right here almost. Then I would move down, like from where I could see those waves breaking and big swells and stuff. I got a big swell right there for me. I'm gonna move down. Right here. Now see, actually, believe it or not, that's what's tricky. Initially I said I would fish here and I was going to stop, but after sitting here for a couple minutes and seeing a couple sets of waves roll through and everything, this spot has me second guessing now. It doesn't, look as good as it did 5 minutes ago. So when you're uncertain, give it a couple more minutes. Alright, so what I'm looking at is I'm looking at the outer bar to see where the waves break. I'm looking to see if the waves form rollers again to tell me that it's deep and close, which here it does. It's 20-30 yards wide. That outer bar is probably 50 to 75 yards wide, so you're not casting over it, not even at low tide. But there's a nice little slope here. That's telling me it gets deep at high tide. Now, being dead of winter, I'm not going to see much shell life. I'm not even going to bother trying to look for fleas and stuff like that that would indicate life here. But this spot looks like it has potential. If you notice, every couple waves here and there, you'll notice a wave breaking, but it breaks diagonally to the beach. It's not coming straight in. There's not much current. The waves are pretty set straight in, but once in a while you'll see that one wave that comes in at an angle, like 30-45 degree angle. See, there's one right there. What that's telling me is that there's like almost like a sand bridge under the water. Little point that goes out, but then it gets narrow and falls off, you know, on each side of it. It's a nice little hole. Spots like that would definitely draw predators in, and it wouldn't really matter which way the current's going, north or south, because crabs, sand fleas, things like that, the eddies that would be created by a little sand bridge like that would hold them in the corners. Predator fish will come in and just, you know, make a quick meal of them. Ideally, that would be a decent spot. Now, I am approximately 3 miles down the beach. This is the first semi-promising spot that I've seen. Being that this is dead low tide, where those waves are crashing, I could pretty much ensure that that water is at least knee deep. For striper and black drum, dead low tide, and you got a nice little, you know, semi current circling around. It looks like the water's going north to south, out further, but in close, it doesn't look like any current. But out of everything I've driven down, like I mentioned earlier, this is probably the roughest water I've seen. Biggest wave forming out there. So that, you know, big waves crashing, that creates a lot of undertow, a lot of current right there at the edge of that bar. If there's any crabs, sand fleas, things like that, they're getting churned up, conch shells. They're all getting churned up right there and rolled around. That would not be a bad place to put a bait. And then of course in close here, you know, 20 feet out. I wouldn't expect anything at dead low tide right now. With striper, catch them at all tides, but I've always been one, I like high tide better. I like, you know, if I'm shark fishing, say midnight, I want high tide to be around midnight, and I like to be fishing till like 8, between like 8 to 10, your prime hours. I'll give it till 12. If I don't get anything by 12, I go home. Red drum tide really don't matter. Spot and time of day matters more with reds than tides. Striped bass, black drum, I've caught them midday, I've caught them early morning, I've caught them early night. Some people say first thing in the morning, some people say first thing at night. Honestly, they'll be around 24/7. You got to put time in. It's just finding the right location, finding a spot that you think would bring them in, because there's food, obviously. Early spring, when they start coming up the coast, a lot of them are real skinny and spawned out. They haven't eaten in a couple weeks. They're more, you know, they were more worried about breeding. So they're not going to be picky on what they want to eat. So what do you think they're going to be eating in the spring? When there's not, water's too cold for, say, kingfish yet. Water's too cold for spot. Water's too cold for croaker yet. The only thing really around are small puffers. So what do you think they're looking for? Sand fleas. Sand fleas are probably going to be the easiest thing for them to find. So yeah, you want to throw short. You want to use as many sand fleas as you can. Sand fleas, peeler crab, if you can get them. They're a bit expensive, but they work. Clam, you can pick up chowder clam pretty cheap. I don't care to use them, they're just pain, but they work. But yeah, no, this, like, sand fleas in the spring, you know, clam and bunker is always good to carry, because you never know when a school of bunker comes through. But normally in the springtime, say I fish 3 rods, 3 big rods for striper or black drum. One of them will have flea, one might have peeler crab if I have peeler, or I'll fish 2 with flea. And the 3rd rod will have bunker, because you never know. You got to keep your options open. The benefit of using flea and peeler is that you could target 2 different species. You got chances of black drum or striped bass. If you use just peeler, you're going to pick up dogfish and skate, things like that, but really the only game fish you have a chance at is striper that time of year. Yeah, no, this is a spot, although most people would pass this right by, my gut's telling me I would try this. If you look right here where those waves are crashing on the beach, they're crashing at a 45. That means the water, or the sand underneath the water, runs out at a 45. Here it's doing the same thing every other wave. So it's telling me right here in the middle is a nice little deep pocket. You got a little sandbar, and then you got the outer bar. Casting here, I would throw one right on the edge of that outer bar, that breaking wave. I'd try to just clear it, just get over it, because then my bait would look like it's getting beat up by the waves and getting tossed around. It would make it more appealing or appetizing. I would throw a rod down here where those waves are coming in, like the 2nd or 3rd set out. Not quite the white water, but just shy of the white water, so it's in a slightly deeper water. But that will pick up any of these fish that are in close, cruising the shoreline looking for food. And then I'd have one in the middle bunker. I'd, you know, either throw it out as far as I can, or just on the front of that sandbar. Ideally, those are the 3 spots that I would fish. But yeah, that's just a quick rating. Again, let's recap. Come out here on calm days, you look for the roughest water. On rough days, you look for the calmest water. That's just a basic general rule of thumb that will help you find your or increase your chances of success if you can't get a good read. Say come out in the middle tide, in between tides. Always remember that outer sandbar, all that white water you see is shallow. If you see it dissipate and then it gets dark, that tells you there's a trough in there. That trough indicates deeper water. If you had to say for some reason this is the only spot you could fish, like say you can walk out and that's as far as you can get, you know, you're limited to where you pick. Throw 1 or 2 rods in close in that darker water. Then bomb one as far as you can out there, trying to get it on that backside of that out bar. As fishing season comes around, I'll do more in-depth videos and actually show you casting techniques and things like that. But I just wanted to touch base with everyone and do a brief tutorial on what I look for when reading the beach. Say hi to Kai. All right, everyone. Leave your comments below, like and subscribe to help me out. Like I said, post any ideas or advice you guys might have. Think help somebody out. I appreciate it. Thanks a lot.